Today we're at one of my buy, refurbish, refinance projects that I completed last year, and I've rented it out as a buy-to-let ever since. But just 10 months on, the property is now empty. And you might ask why. And the truth is, well, we've had a few problems. So if you haven't watched the video from last year where I did the conversion of this flat, did a full refurb and then rented it out for £1,000, then, well, I'll leave the link around this video or in the description, but it's definitely worth a watch. But since renting it out, things have slowly gone downhill, and that's not actually through any fault of the tenant. In fact, they were lovely people, and I wanted to do right by them. It's actually really been a problem with the flat, okay? When I say a problem with the flat, the main problem is the mould, and the main problem is the airflow within the flat. So if we start with something which isn't too bad, but it's certainly something I need to address, well, we're here in the bedroom, which I created, and well, in the corner, there's a bit of mould, okay, a bit of a mould situation. It's also round the window, which I'll share some B-roll of so you can see over me talking this through. But really this is a bit of a problem because where hot air is getting trapped in a room, it's got nowhere to escape. And those kind of hot pockets of air, they create condensation or create mould over time. So this has kind of been happening in multiple points of this flat, in the bedroom, in the front sitting room, and unfortunately, in a very drastic way in the bathroom. And this is pretty damn bad, okay? I've seen houses, I've seen flats in my time. I've had flats and houses where this kind of mould problem has occurred, but maybe not as quickly as this, okay? This has happened only over a kind of 8 to 10 month window, by which I wasn't really aware of quite how bad it was until the tenants told me within the last couple of months. So this is the main problem that we need to solve, and other than installing a new extractor fan, which I've already had done, I'm going to tell you about how I plan to solve this problem for the next person that's going to live here. So obviously I've got a fair amount of properties in my portfolio, and this is something that I've come across before. And certainly when we're doing the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, where we're potentially taking an older property, not necessarily like this one, but an older property, putting UPVC windows in, upgrading the energy efficiency, or sometimes where we're taking a flat like this and we're adding a bedroom in, you're changing the layout, okay? In those circumstances, you're kind of changing the flow of air in a property. So these problems can arise. But that wasn't something that I wasn't aware that could happen. So I did try to prevent this even before the tenants moved in. And I did that by having an extractor fan, an upgraded one, put into the bathroom, or one that I thought would be good enough. I had an extractor fan installed here in the kitchen behind me, which I'll show you, as well as one right above the cooker. And I had, obviously when I had the new windows put in, that they have trickle vents on. And I also met the tenants when they moved into the property, and it sounds a bit patronising, but taught them how to live. And it sounds like a silly thing, but it's something you have to do sometimes as a landlord, is introduce them to the property and say, look, listen, you're in a small confined space, you've got double glazing, but you need to open the windows. You need to not always be drying clothes on clothes horses. You need to use the tumble. You need to make sure there's plenty of air flowing around and that you're not creating condensation. But even with those conversations and those preventative measures, I've still had this problem. So why is that? Why has that happened? Well, it could have been for a few different reasons. First and foremost, I've never owned this property before. It's new to my portfolio. I've never lived in it. I've never owned it before. I don't know how things are going to go. So we tend to do what we can, we rent them out, and then if problems arise, we try to solve that problem. That could have been one thing, okay? The second thing was, I had a lovely couple move in here. I always felt like it should have been a single person because it's a fairly confined space, but I had a lovely couple apply, and I said, yeah, absolutely. Shortly after, they had a baby. So now there's 3 people in this fairly confined, small 1-bedroom flat. Okay, 3 people breathing hot air into the room, and particularly with a baby, I'm told, I've never had one myself, but I'm told there's more washing to be done as well. So more reason for potentially clothes being dried, etc., etc. I also felt that potentially, even though we've had some good conversations, that the windows weren't always being opened as much as they could have been, and extractor fans being isolated and turned off when they should have been left on. And when I was asking about them, I'd often be told, well, they make an annoying humming noise, which is true, they do make an annoying humming noise, but if it's going to prevent mould and condensation and issues, then please do turn them on. So you might be thinking, why was the tenancy only 10 months or 8 to 10 months? I think 10 months in total. And the reason behind that is they signed a 12-month tenancy, but the fact that they had a child in here with the mould related problems, I felt like I wanted to release them so they could go and find another property to live in, and I would just be able to come in here, clean it up, resolve its problems, and then rent it to someone new. I felt like it was a good to clean slate it. Now, I was lucky that they've left it in relatively good condition. Majority of the flat, all the carpets seem in good nick. Yes, there are scuffed walls, and yes, there are holes where they put a TV on the wall and made a pathetic attempt to try and fill the holes, but ultimately it's not too big a problem in the grand scheme of things. So the works I'm going to have done here, other than filling in the holes and having a lot of the walls repainted, is mainly around solving the mould problems. So to start with, in this room, even though there isn't a huge amount of mould here, I'm going to be having trickle vents installed onto these windows, because these are relatively new UPVC windows, but not within recent years. Okay, if you buy a window now, they'll come with trickle vents, and the bedroom window, which I had installed because that was the only old one when I bought this flat, that one has one in it, but these ones don't at the front. And what I want to do is to create any opportunity for air to flow freely throughout this property. So that's one thing. The second thing is I'm probably going to have an air brick installed along this wall. Okay, I'm not exactly sure where, currently waiting for a bit more advice on that, but I'm going to have an air brick installed again because that's allowing air to flow between the outside and the inside. You're stopping that hot air being trapped in the room, and what you want is kind of cold air coming into the room. Okay, talking as a novice, I'm absolutely not a mould expert, but I have resolved problems like this before. I'm also going to be, if we walk into the other room, going to first of all probably make sure that that kitchen extractor is always on. I have already taken action with installing a much more powerful fan in here, because this is a problem, this room. Okay, so even though I'd already upgraded it when I bought the flat, I've then gone and upgraded it again, and this is an extractor fan which stays on all of the time. Okay, when the light is off and it times out, it just runs very slowly. Okay, but it's always running. And then when you turn the light on, it boosts up, okay? And that's because clearly there is a problem with stagnant air in here, hot air in here. We just need to continuously get that pushed out of the room, okay? We could even possibly add an internal air brick to allow for some of the air to leave this room and go into the rest of the flat. I'm not sure that that's the right answer, but that's something I'm still discussing as well. Obviously in here, you need a hell of a lot of stripping of some of the paint, stain blocking, and then probably a couple of coats of eggshell on top of that as well. And in here, lastly, is another air brick. Okay, much like I just talked about in the other room, we're probably going to need another air brick in here, just again to make sure that when they sleep at night and the bedroom door is shut, because these are well insulated walls, this is a fire door, we don't want any air getting stuck behind, potentially a wardrobe, behind the bed, and creating problems there. So those are the main things I'm going to do. The last thing I'm going to mention is I'm going to really go hard on making sure that this is a single occupant now. Okay, not many single occupants may be able to afford £1,000 a month, but I think that's important to not overcrowd the flat. And the second thing being, again, when this new person moves in, really try to educate them on how important airflow is in this flat, because this can't be an ongoing problem that I'm always facing, and I don't want for someone to be living in that ongoing problem as well. And I think truly that I believe, now that I've got the flat back and we've had the windows open, I truly believe that if someone gave this property the right natural airflow, this wouldn't be a reoccurring problem.